Hey everyone, good evening. I'm so excited to be here, and I want to say welcome to the virtual premiere for Prime Video's new series, As We See It. I am more than pleased. I am so honored to moderate the conversation tonight in celebration of this very authentic, funny, and heartwarming new show. So, as a mother of a child who is on the spectrum, this is just I can't say I'm like literally sitting on my hands. I'm so excited to talk to everybody. So we're going to welcome our panelists. We have Emmy Award winning executive producer Jason Katims. Hi, Jason.
Hi, how are you?
We want to introduce Debbie Glassman's son, Rick
Aw.
Glassman.
Oh, thank you.
I wanted to say hello and give a warm welcome to Suann Pian. We want to introduce Sosie Bacon,
Hi. Hello.
the funny, the poignant Albert Brutecki. Hey!
Hi. Hello, everyone.
Hi, Albert.
Hi, Albert.
And want to introduce Chris Pang.
How are you? Thanks for having us, Sherry. Thanks for doing this. Super excited to be here.
It's so nice to meet you. I'm so excited to be talking to you all. I want to say welcome tonight. We have so many people, even though you can't see the audience, guys, we have so many people watching from their homes. They probably have their pajamas on, all nice and comfy, but they are watching you right now. So it's just like they're in the audience. So know that they're there and they are cheering you on. So as we see it, this is so exciting because this is a show I have not seen one like it before. And like I said, I just want to show you guys really quickly. That's my son, Jeffrey. That is Jeffrey right there. And
Oh.
he is 16 years old. He is on the spectrum. And as a parent, I had a little bit of trepidation when I first put the first episode of As We See It on. And then I sat there and I said, Jason, someone knows my story. Oh my gosh.
Oh, yeah.
So for anybody who hasn't had a chance to watch As We See It, would you please tell us how this series came together?
Sure. The show's about three young adults on the spectrum, and it's sort of just a coming of age story. It's about kind of just their lives, all the stuff that you would go through at that, at that time in your life about love and relationship and friendship. And the way it came about was, a few years ago, I was, thinking about this. I was thinking about the subject of adults with autism because I have a son on the spectrum. He was, sort of starting to be about the age. I was looking, down the road at him being at this age and wondering what it was going to be like for him. And it occurred to me, there's not a lot of stories out there about adults with spectrum. You hear a lot and read a lot and see a lot about childhood, and then you realize that those people grow up, become adults. And then I saw this incredible Israeli television show called On the Spectrum. And that was sort of my light bulb moment. And I thought I would want to adapt that and do an American version of it. I thought I had personal connections in the material. The show was really beautiful. And I thought that I had such a personal way, and I thought I could really bring something to telling the story.
Wow, and you really did bring something to it. I have to say, the actors, Suann, Rick, Albert, you were so wonderful in capturing everything. Because you see kids on the spectrum when they're little, they're very cute, like you said, Jason. Then all of a sudden they're grown up, and you go, okay, now how do I deal with this person now who's a full human being? And so you three executed it marvelously. I need to know how authentic was the casting? What was this casting process?
How did it happen? Yeah.
Yeah.
So, when Amazon, greenlit the pilot, the very first thing I did was I called Cami Patton, who's my casting director, and said, I want to try to cast these leads authentically, find actors on the spectrum to do it. And it was, not usually the first call you make. Usually I would call my wife and say, the show got picked up. But, but when you start making a show, you think about a director, you think about your line producer and production designer. But in this case, I thought what was most, important to me about the show was for the show to feel real and to feel authentic and to feel like, I felt a sort of great sense of responsibility in telling this story, because I knew, the subject matter is so personal to me. I wanted to get it right. And I thought the way to start with that is how we cast it. And I didn't know what the talent pool would be like, honestly, for actors on the spectrum. And after we started the search, Cammie, the casting director, sent me, very soon after, she said, I'm collecting a lot of tape. I'm going to send you a lot of actors, but I want to send you one audition right away. And this was right after we started auditioning.
Thank you, Jason.
And it was not Rick. It was Sue-Ann. And it was Sue-Ann, did the scene from the pilot where she talks about being, wanting to be normal. She talks about, how her parents said she was beautiful and all this stuff. And I was watching it, and within 30 seconds of watching it, I was in tears watching her performance. And I thought this was the right way to go. And then soon after that, we found Rick and we found Albert, and I was like so thrilled with, so thrilled. I'm so thrilled with the cast, and they're all so incredibly wonderful. I'm excited for people who haven't seen it yet to see their performances.
And before we go on, I want to say to the audience that is sitting here watching our virtual premiere, if you have any questions, because at the end, if we have a little bit of time, we are going to take some questions from the audience. So there's a Q&A button. Just hit that button and type in your questions so we can go through them. And, whatever you want to ask the cast, we're going to do it right at the end. So please hit the Q&A button. I remember, Sue-Ann, your character is Violet, and you were in the car with your brother, Van, who's played by Chris Pang, and you had the most beautiful monologue because you said, Mom always told me I was beautiful. What do I do with this? You just wanted to be normal. So before I go on and on about you, Violet, because you're the best friend in my head, tell us about your character.
Oh, I'm verklempt right now.
Oh my God, I love it.
Yeah, Jason's such an incredible writer. It was I read Violet, and I've never read a part like that in my entire life, and I just knew from the inside outside who Violet is, And so I feel so lucky I got to play her and show, because there's so, as I grew up and I could relate to so many of the things that Violet goes through, wanting to be normal, having overbearing, protective family members, and not understanding why when I don't fit in, right? It's so frustrating, the frustration of the real world. And so it was magic to get to play Violet, and I'm so grateful. Thanks. Yeah.
Violet is the type of person you didn't want to be put in the box and just labeled as on the spectrum. You wanted to have a full life. You wanted a boyfriend. You were sexual. You wanted everything. And did you feel trapped, your character?
No, are you kidding me? It's so funny because even what do you mean? Van's gonna take away her phone? I did stuff like that growing up. I was no, I want to go out. I'm gonna have life. I'm gonna make a life. Is basically what I did, whether anybody wanted me to or not. And I think so it was incredible to play Violet because I knew what she was doing, sneaking around, being on the phone, going to Van's apartment to find the phone. I'm sure I've done stuff like that.
Has an
My
every
history.
teen. Yes. Thank you, Sue Ann. Now, Rick, and I still got to say hi to Debbie Glassman. I'm going to say, I don't know. We got to take a shot every time I say Debbie Glassman's name. So, Rick, can you tell us about your character?
Yes. Jack is he's a son of a only parent. I want to answer that by also telling you where I relate and differ from Jack, because it was the easiest way for me to do whatever I was able to do with this role, which is Jack has autism. He has autism. It's his life, and it is what it is. But what else is it? What it is nobody knows about it. It's not even a challenge for him to keep it a secret. One of his missions isn't to keep it a secret; just nobody knows because I'm not telling anybody. As the show progresses, and he realizes that maybe people do know. And Jason, forgive me if I'm creating something that wasn't there to begin with, but it seemed like there's this new obstacle that came into his life, which was I now have to not only deal with the things I'm struggling with, but now I have to like pretend like my hands aren't sweating during it. And I was diagnosed with autism as an adult in my early 30s, and when I first found out, it was I wanted to yell it from the rooftops because all of these obstacles in these special schools and classes I had to go to, all these patterns now, these things that weren't are now this pattern. I was so excited to talk about it. And as I was talking about it, what I realized was many people have preconceived ideas of what different means, and they have different ideas of what autism means. I remember specifically two friends. One, I told them, yeah, obviously. And one said, that's not what autism is. And I found myself in this position to where I was explaining and selling and teaching about something that I'm only now starting to kind of understand and learn about. And it made me very confused and scared and depressed. And I told this to Jason earlier on, but there was a year where I was so depressed and I was keeping it from everybody. But I was keeping it from people because I didn't understand how to explain it and I didn't want to have to sell it. And then I got to be on this show where it was kind of done for me. And I was able to tap into that because of this one specific year in my life of hiding it. But this character was me as a kid and I didn't even know it. And I don't know. I didn't know I didn't have friends. I just thought everyone liked me and nobody goes to anybody's house, and I'm watching Jack not have friends. And it's like, oh, I now get to play the person who didn't have the awareness that I didn't have. And through circumstance that was craftily written by Jason, thank you. Jack was forced to be around people in these relationships that it started off transactional. So they weren't going to escape and I couldn't escape. And that allowed everybody to communicate with him and him communicate with them. And it's just it's so beautiful. It's so beautiful. And it was fun to be able to take some of these insecurities that I had for my life and be able to tell a story with it, with as we see it.
What's very interesting about your character, Jack, is that which happens to many kids on the spectrum, no filter, no matter what. And having so many episodes with your father, played by Joe Mantegna, of just diarrhea of the mouth and very embarrassing, which a lot of us parents have gone through. And I could see in scenes where, there were things happening where you just couldn't help yourself, but the emotion was going through your face of wanting to be what your father wanted you to be, and it hit me being able to see you I'm trying here. Even going back to try to get your job back. I'm trying to lie. I can't, which is so beautiful.
Oh, and could I relate to that? Yeah. I'm trying. I'll do what you tell me, but like, I don't understand this. Why am I doing this? But you just trust your advocates in your life, which is by Joe. And I mean, I cried multiple times with him off screen, let alone, getting to do scenes with him. And yeah, if you have somebody that, even if you don't understand, that you trust, it is a really beautiful process it got to be a part of Jack in numerous stories.
Thank you so much, Jack. Now, Jason, you wrote this incredible storyline for this beautiful young man who was so tender and just wanted to be loved. and wanted to be seen, Harrison, who's played by Albert Rattecki. This, I want to congratulate you, Albert, because this is your first acting job, yes?
Yeah, it was
Well,
my first audition for TV even.
oh my goodness. Can I tell you, for your first acting job, you made me cry so much. I just wanted to put kisses all over your face. I really did. So gentle.
Can
But
I say,
I want, say it again. I'm sorry. Say what you're going to say.
can I say something quick?
Yes.
You're saying how like autistic kids have no filter. Like it suddenly popped into my mind. See, when I was a kid, my mother was infuriated with me because I kept saying, "You're an old lady" to people.
I remember you telling me that.
Yeah, one lady, my mom apologized to her. She said, "Oh, don't worry, it's fine. I am an old lady." And I was just like, mm-hmm.
I am going to tell you, Albert, as a mother, I've heard you're an old lady. I've heard, why is your stomach so big? I have heard it all. So, and I love you for it. Can you tell us about your character, Harrison?
Yes. Harrison, in especially at the start of the series, is like really in a shell, or like he's just balled up his emotions, and is not really sure how to express himself. He also feels kind of stuck in life, which I very much relate to that aspect. It's like shortly before I got this job, if I went through an entire year of like quarter life crisis, like where am I going from here? Or I'm becoming an adult, school, I graduate from college, what's next? Like Harrison, he's become an adult for whether he likes it or not, for better or for worse. And he's just trying to find his way. And as this series goes on, and he starts to like take chances, tries new experiences, and it doesn't always work out well for him. In which that's life. See, things don't always go how you expected. And
Mm-hmm.
he almost like ends up going back home, which for him would have been like a step backwards in his life. But circumstances dictated that wasn't really going to happen, and that he finally started to like to tell people how he felt, and who felt comfortable just spilling his guts out, even though a lot of the emotions were negative. If sometimes it's just good to talk through that. And yeah, I think he's at a better place emotionally by the end of the season than he was at the start.
But you'll have to watch to find out if that's for sure.
Absolutely, Debbie Glass. You sure do. I want to move on to Sosie. Your character is Mandy. You're the aide in the house with these three young people. Can you tell us about your character?
Well, Mandy is, I think that she's, obviously struggling. Just the cool thing about the way that Jason wrote the series, in my opinion, is that I actually truly believe that the end of your 20s is like the hardest time in your life in a way. And every character, whether neurotypical or neurodiverse, was going through sort of similar things and failing and messing up, like Albert was saying, and getting better. And I think that Mandy is kind of struggling with the pressure of this need that I think we put on young adults, like people that mid-20s people to go to college and create a career that's going to bring you somewhere, et cetera, et cetera. But she has, she just feels more connected to her job as their aide at the apartment. She wants to be there and she wants to be there with them. And I think that like she's struggling with the what you should do and what you really want to do in your heart, if that makes sense. And I think that that's really the time that you have to, that the time that people have to start listening to everybody's sort of shoulds and do what feels right for them. And that's becoming an adult, I think. I mean, I'm going through it right now, so I don't know. I'm not an expert, but that's I think at Mandy. Yeah.
Your character was so interesting because there was so many elements pulling at you, which is what so many of us caretakers face. You had a love. How do you pursue love and relationships? And maybe, yes, the struggle of should I go on? This was a temporary thing, you being with Violet and Jack and Harrison, and having to decide what you're going to do. So that struggle was so real. How did
Yes.
you just how did you even prepare to be that character?
I would say that I don't know. I think I kind of just am definitely so much like Mandy. I'm a caretaker. I'm a perfectionist. I want to make sure like the scene of me carrying 1,000 things. I mean, you just saw me do that before we got on. So I think that everyone would agree that I'm pretty much her. But how did I prepare? I mean, there was like a lot of a certain research that I did, but I think that a lot of people feel, women in particular, almost feel pressure to please everybody, and that can be a lot to carry, you know. And I think that that is something that Mandy, that I wanted to bring to Mandy, and that Jason wrote for Mandy. And as well, what I appreciated was the fact that, you know, she sort of comes off as perfect and hugely empathetic and lovely and great to everybody. And then, like, you know, she messes up, and she's not perfect, and she hurts Harrison's feelings. And that's real life, you know. Everybody makes mistakes, and in a way, it's good for Harrison to get through that with Mandy. Does that make sense? Spoiler alert.
I think we're okay. We have another character, Chris Pang. You play Van in the show. Can you tell us about your character?
Oh man. You know, Van, he's just a regular average guy. I think I mean he's just a normal guy that's been thrown into, I guess, a extraordinary situation. I think so. Van is Violet's brother, and he's like a 20-something-year-old guy that's just trying to go about his life, but now he's trying to look after his sister who's on the spectrum, and that's a handful. And so how do you balance that and life, and trying to have a girlfriend, trying to be at work, when you have a full-time person to look after? He's a carer as well, you know, and it wasn't necessarily something that I guess he had wanted. It's just been thrust upon him, and, you know, his parents are out of the picture since he was like 19. So he's the main income earner for the family, for the two of them. And so there's an incredible amount of pressure that's been put on him, and he's just been thrown into this situation. And I think Van's someone that when I first read the scenes in the script, he was someone that was very easily unlikable. You know, there was a version of him that was just a dick because he says things and does things that are like, I see him as someone who has been forced to grow up, you know, and with that, when you're lacking experience, you got to make up for it with, I guess, a confidence that you have to find in yourself. And so he might not always know what the best thing is to do, but he's got to do it and got to be sure of it. And I think that's how he goes about a lot of what he does. And so when it comes to Violet, he's trying to do what's best for her, and he's trying to love her the best way that he can, but it's tough. You know, it's hard, especially being a young guy. You got stuff to do. I'm like, I can't even manage just playing Xbox and eating at the same time in a day. Like, I can't. That's already too much for me. Like, this guy has to work. He has to look after his sister. I kind of see him like the Tasmanian devil from the Warner Brothers thing. You know, like he just, it's like a storm when he comes through. He just ruins everything. He just like breaks stuff and like makes people upset, hurts people. But then he's kind of cute. He's kind of cute in the end. Like, when you get to know him, he's like a softie. So that's kind of Van in a nutshell. Also, like, I likened him to, I probably shouldn't say this. He's kind of like my grandma. He's kind of like my grandma.
Oh,
Old school Asian love, where she's just prickly, and it's not, she's one of the people that's like, oh, she has the best intentions, but the way she does it just doesn't feel nice. And that's kind of Van.
Hi, Van's grandma.
Anyway. Hi, Van's grandma. Yeah. Hi, grandma.
Thank you for also explaining which Tasmanian devil you were talking about.
Yeah, the Warner Brothers one, man.
Right.
I said that, right? The Warner Brothers one.
It's the only one, man.
that's the only one.
The real one.
You know what's really wonderful, Chris, about the character that Jason wrote for you, and you saw it as, oh my gosh, this character at first was such a dick. I think your character so embodied how much we love this person, our sister, our son, our daughter, but we get frustrated too. It's, because you and you and Sue-Ann, your brother and sister, and it's parts. I love you so much. I just want to protect you from the cold, hard world that I know is going to hurt you. I am frustrated by you because of the emotional outbursts. I'm trying to do the best that I can. And I'm protective of you with anybody. There was a scene, my gosh, where, you in part said, she's ruined all of these relationships, my sister. And then you say to your girlfriend, don't you ever say you're going to do something or be somewhere and tell my sister, and you don't show up. So I got it. Mm-hmm. I so got it. Now, you guys are sister and brother. How was that? How did you form that relationship? When you had to deal with her and protect her. Just tell me about your relationship, Sue-Ann, with your brother, Van.
Oh my gosh. I mean, Chris is he's perfect, because I would just look at him and I could just see, like, there was just so much there already emotionally, and he was just the perfect conduit for, like, what needed to come out. And oh man, and you actually nailed it, Sherri, when you said that. It's like the person who loves you the most, who's trying to protect you. They're also like they're your worst tormentor, and you're like, stop, like, I don't want this. And it's so complicated. It's so complicated. I don't think, like, I've seen, like, autistic relationships and family dynamics portrayed so realistically. Jason, thank you. Like, those are very realistic scenarios, right? Like, it's not cookie cutter, especially if you have a brother trying to caretake a sister he's barely, like, a little older, like, and he's poor. Like, that's a big deal, right? Like, it's stressful. It's really stressful. So it's just so beautiful at the writing and storylines. I'm really,
I think
it was really easy.
that story is like, there's, Violet really wants autonomy. She wants autonomy, and she deserves autonomy, and she's old enough to have autonomy. And Van is in this place of feeling like he's blocking that. And he's blocking that not because, he doesn't want you to have it. He wants you to have it, but he feels this need to protect you in ways that you don't think you need to be protected. And I think that's what that sort of, I think the That's what I love about watching the scenes between the two of you, is like that's sort of at the core of, you know, a lot of those scenes, is that you're yearning for that autonomy, for not having somebody looking over your shoulder, telling you what to do, telling you what kind of taking your phone away. I mean, the indignity of that. But you know, and then there's like on the other side of that, there's Van, who you know, kind of knows or believes that you need more support than you think you need at times.
I think Van desperately wants to give that autonomy too. He would love nothing more than for Violet to be able to live life, experience things on her own, but he just doesn't trust her with it. And I think that's the problem. It's one of those 1 step forward, 2 steps back type things where it's like, oh, okay, I've given you a phone, you're at work, great, we're moving forward. And then something happens, and now I'm taking your phone away, and then something worse happens, and it's just, where do you go with it? Yeah, it's tough.
Yeah. You know, and it's not fair, you know, like you're this young guy, and it's, you know, it's not fair in a way for you to have that responsibility. And there's that too. And, you know, there's stuff that you're really worried about. It probably keeps you up at night of what could happen to her.
I feel like there was like a really something very nuanced, Jason, that you honed in on with, because Mandy, you know, is very like, it's her choice. She wants to caretake, etc. But they have this one conversation, and I don't remember Chris, I think we were in the apartment, and we were talking about it. And then I don't know if it was you or our director who said like, yeah, but it's his, but he's responsible for her entirely. And you're not, you can walk away at any time. And I immediately started crying. I don't know why, because I just felt that sort of, you know, he doesn't have autonomy, you know, and that responsibility falls totally on him. So he's not a dick. He's just, I don't know. There's just a lot.
Well, it's tough for him too, because for Van, it's even though Violet's such a handful and takes up so much of his time, he loves her more than anything because she's all that he has. She's the only family that he has. And I think that's a lot that's a storyline that kind of gets explored throughout the series too. And that's part of his journey, realizing that the way that he loves her and what he's giving might not be the best way to love her, and he just needs to listen to her a bit more.
Yeah, it's complicated when the way you are forced to express love is by giving safety, and like there's an obligation, and when you mix obligation with love, it's not freeing for anybody, and it's like circumstantial. And the relationship that you two have, it feels like emotionally you're brother and sister, but like your deliverables are a parent that you didn't sign up for, that you haven't had 20 some years of experience for. It's
you know,
tough.
Rick, that's interesting that you talk
Thank
about that. Your character, Jack, is with Joe Mantegna, who plays your father. He's a single dad. So he is the only one that you have in your life. You both are dealing with things from the opposite end. He's going through something and he's worried, which is what we parents and caretakers go through. What's going to happen if I'm not here? Who's going to take care of my child? Will they be independent? And you having to deal with not wanting to lose him. Can you talk about the relationship with your father on the show?
So there's something that I found in this later on. I don't remember. It was episode 3 or 4, like a realization that I had that was my character and his father. A lot of times when you hear stories about, like, you know, the parent is going through something and they're older, it's like, I'll be okay. Let's just focus on you. I'll be fine. You know, deal with what you're dealing with. But from the beginning of this series, Jack doesn't lack empathy as much as he just doesn't recognize other people's perspective. And they very much connect on something that on surface might be a bit selfish. When his dad is afraid of leaving and worried about Jack, Jack's like, yeah, I need you to pay my rent. What am I going to do about my rent? And of course he cares about more than that, but there is a very visceral fear that Jack has that affects him directly, not just the loss of love and connection and this friendship that is very limited in his life. And through that, there is this kind of bonding thing that I realized that they had, which is Jack's trying to help. No, you have to go through these treatments. We have to figure this stuff out. I need to get my rent. And it kind of, that's why I said earlier, there's like some transactional relationships that he has. It kind of put them on the same team on something that wasn't so intuitive for Jack. And with that, he starts to see the perspectives. He starts to see the stuff that his father is going through. He's empathizing because he's now part of something that otherwise he wouldn't have allowed himself to be part of. And that helps, strengthen his relationships with other people as he's starting to be able to see other people's perspectives. And he sees how Jack's, how his father's sister, there was some issue when they were kids, and my character and my cousins, I would bite them. We wouldn't get along. Jack had no idea, just like me as a kid. No, they love me. No one wants to come over. But he then sees how much his father is protecting him. And, oh, I thought you wanted me to get a job and to do these things and make eye contact. I thought you were hassling me, but I'm now realizing, and I could relate so strongly to this, which is true. And from his perspective, yeah, you're a pain in the ass for me right now. But also he then sees how much he has been a burden and an obstacle onto other people. And that's the first step. And realizing that doesn't make him be change who he is, but having that awareness that this sickness forced them to be on the same team over really opens up his understanding to not just do what I'm supposed to be doing, but to want those things for himself as well. And Jack's father gives him not at first the instruction, but then the want to live a life that is just really not as far out of reach as just changing one little thing, which is just being aware it exists. And Joe, man, is he good at that. He's so good at that. And there's a scene where I'm told that I'm supposed to be his advocate. So I'm like going through the rule books and saying, I'm going to be your advocate. And when this was a scene, I'll wrap this up in 30 seconds, but this was a scene. It was a two-part thing. We do a thing in the car. It's a great moment that Joe has talking to me. And then we film something else, ran into an elevator. And Sosi and I I don't know why, but we're just constantly laughing. And it was the silliest scene. And we kept chasing, and I'm laughing. And then I go into the car, and every time Joe looks at me, and I was supposed to have eye contact there because there's certain moments, and every time he's making me cry. And it was just like, man, thank you, Joe, for season 2,
Well, I didn't have that. So I just kept laughing. Luckily.
Yeah.
I didn't get to look into Joe's eyes.
Man, yeah, he's there. And it was very Joe being an experienced actor, and also the father has the experience talking to me, the character, the limited experience, and me, I don't have that much experience being part of a show telling a story like this. And it was very much easy to tap into, like, this is the dad, you listen.
Wow.
It was really great watching you and Joe do scenes together. And I think it was that scene when you were sitting in the car together that, between, takes, when they were setting up you guys were like sitting in the car between takes, just waiting for the cameras to be ready. And usually, the sound mixer will turn off, your mics at that point, so the whole crew can't hear what you're saying. But he forgot. So, your mics were, you had hot mics. You were just talking to each other in the car. And I remember, and I shouldn't have listened. I should take my headphones off, but I didn't. And I remember this moment that I just loved so much, where you looked at him, you said something like, I really like working with you, Joe. And he turned to you and he said, I really like working with you too. Yeah. And it was just the most beautiful sweet moment, to observe. And it was just, I just remembered that.
And this was off screen. This wasn't even part of the script.
Yeah.
There was
It was
so
very
much of
intimate.
that.
It was
There
very
was so
intimate relationship with Joe.
there was so much of that off screen. Like there was so much genuine
Yeah.
appreciation for working with each other. And it was often said, you know, like we all, I mean, I felt that way. I felt like everybody told each other when, you know, they were feeling so grateful, and it was nice.
I also think there's something, and I don't want to categorize this as an autistic thing, although I feel it's fair to, you know, at least acknowledge it. But in this idea of speaking directly and not censoring, both because of being unaware of how it might make someone feel, but also not worrying about your own ego with certain things. And I do find that people, when you're around people who speak directly, it at least subconsciously conditions others to do the same, if not receive it more efficiently. And when there's people on set and you say that, and that's a, you know, great background, by the way, you know, or anything, you know, it just kind of, people start to say things. And this
Yeah.
environment was that. I mean, it wasn't just some of the cast. I mean, it was the crew and either on the spectrum or directly connected to it in some way. And it was just this, and Elaine on set, who was our on-set advocate, of just like, I guess we're supposed to just be nice, you know, like it was almost this unspoken thing. I guess just try to be nice because it's your job. And it just kind of made this, it's easier to connect to people when they tell you how they feel, especially when the things are nice, but even when they're not, even when it's, you know, maybe to try to,
Honest.
yeah, it just feels like it's just real connection and not as much, like platitudes. One anecdote I want to say real quick is there's something I wanted to try on set at the workplace, Jason. And I was very nervous to ask these things because you know, you pick your battles and you open that door to me and I'll just be trying everything. And I tried something and Jason said, do it. And I did it. And before I even finished doing it, in my head, I'm like, this isn't going to work. and I was just like, I wanted to yell sorry, but I'm not calling cut, you know? Afterwards, I go downstairs like a cat. I'm next to Jason. I want Jason to say, he's just too nice. I want Jason to say, Rick, don't do that anymore. But he wouldn't. So I said, Jason, I just want you to know, he didn't even let me finish. He goes, yeah, we won't use it. And it was just like, you know, just by, you know, you have to open that door sometimes to people. But then he right away goes, don't worry about it. We're not doing that.
Jason, you're just so brilliant. You can tell, first of all, guys, you can tell this relationship that you had on screen, which was so unified and so loving. You can tell it happened off screen as well because it was so easy being with each other. But Jason, this is a show where you cry, you laugh, you brought together like so many of these young adults on the spectrum. They were together in drama class. And Sue-Ann's character didn't even want to be, well, nobody wanted to be there.
Oh my God.
Everybody wanted to be out. And this is something, guys, I'm telling you, as parents, we go to shows and we want to see you like excel. And nobody wanted to be in this drama class and have this, you know, this show. But Jason, you beautifully wrote these characters, these people who had lives and who I got to see another side of them. They were so beautiful in their quirkiness and uniqueness. How much humor did you want to be injected into this? Because I laughed so hard at certain things.
Oh, thank you. I mean, to me, humor in the show is so important because first of all, that's like, you know, there's humor in life. You know what I mean? There's humor in life. And to me, this is a show that is, I want people to feel, I want people to like experience the world as they experience it. And in order for you to feel, laughter opens you up to that. Laughter gives you gives you the it's like the gateway to be able to feel your feelings. And my favorite thing, you know, when both in watching shows and in doing stuff is when you find yourself laughing and then almost like in the same second you're crying. How do I just get emotional? And I felt like we had a lot of those moments in the show because of, these really because of the people that you're looking at, because this incredible cast were just brought it all. And one of the things I would say, though, about the humor that was really important to me was that it all came from character that it was never laughing at anybody. You know, this was it was from the stuff, it was the humor of life. It was, you know, and so that's where it kind of came from. And plus, Rick brought some good props. That was the other thing. Okay,
There was
cue the props.
Stop it!
wait, what?
Oh my God.
Speaking of,
Doven?
Oh my God, Rick.
I wanted to remind the audience we'll have a short period for Q&A, so hit that Q&A button and type in your question so I can get to you. I wanted to ask Albert, again, you were so, there was a moment where you were with a younger child because you related so well with him and you both found each other. And because adults don't see, who have not dealt with kids on the spectrum, they don't see beyond what they see, a big adult and a child. And there were a couple scenes where mothers who are nurturing came at you and didn't want you to be near their children. And I tell you, I broke down. It took me out. Tell me about playing in scenes like this. What did you feel? How'd you approach it?
Those are some heavy scenes.
Yeah.
I suppose one thing that I approached it with is like Harrison didn't really understand at first, like why they're reacting this way. It was like, I'm just hanging out with a friend. What's going on? And I'm not really sure what to say. Those were just tough scenes to do. I had some trouble with the one in the gym, and me and the actress who was like standing between me and AJ. While the camera wasn't rolling, me and her had to talk about, okay, we're doing something wrong. How do we like do this better? Or eventually, I think we got it right. You just have to try.
That was a tough scene.
Yeah.
Yes. Jason, when you wrote that scene of the mother confronting both mothers who loved children, confronting Harrison about being around their children, what was going through your mind?
I mean, to me, it was a story about how Harrison, you know, finding a friend and having friendship was was hard for Harrison, you know, and he found that in AJ, and it was such a beautiful friendship, and you know, it was great. I loved watching scenes between the two of them, and to me, this was a story about how, you know, the world sometimes doesn't get it, you know, that what, you know, how it appears in the world. It's just, and you know, those moms were not, you know, like evil. It's just they just couldn't see. They just had this misconception. They just had this idea of what they were seeing that wasn't, in this case, correct. And you know, to me, it was just sort of the poignancy. But you know, the thing is that relationship with AJ was sweet, and then it gets revisited later. So even though, you know, they're not supposed to see each other, you know, you still get the sense that that friendship is stronger than, you know, what AJ's mom, you know, sort of told him to do. And so, you know, and also, like, I want to say, since we're talking about Albert's performance, you mentioned this was his first professional job, and it was so amazing to work with Albert on the show. And we wrote we wrote a scene for him in the final episode. I don't want to give away what it is because, you know, it's like the final episode. I want people to watch the show. But it's an incredibly intense moment. And Albert has like this, very big scene, a very challenging scene. And it was amazing to me when we were doing it. And I was nervous when we came to set that day to do it. Not because I was nervous about his ability to do it. It was just like an intense scene that when you write something like that, you're like, well, what's it going to be like? Yeah. And I know Albert was nervous too, because it was very challenging. But it was like, to me, it speaks to Albert's talent. It also speaks to this ensemble, the trust that they develop with each other. I don't think I could have written that scene before we started doing the show, but in seeing, kind of what was happening and how much Albert was coming into his own as an actor and being comfortable and being able to just, go for it. I instinctivly thought that this is something we could sort of do. And his performance is so amazing. And it was such a moving thing to be on set and watch him, do that kind of work, because it was not an easy thing for any actor to do. And this was his first gig.
Yeah.
And to see the arc of the work that he did was really really a beautiful thing to see.
Yeah, I was gonna say that with Albert. Also, like, being an actor, well, I just feel it, you have to work so hard, so consistently, especially on a show. And I just felt like everybody on this show worked so hard and was so prepared and showed up every day with just 1,000%. And I just find that to be rare, I really do. So I think that that's where the trust was built first, whether it's your first job or it didn't matter, that's what brings cast together, and that when everybody is on board for that. And there was nobody who wasn't, and it was so magical.
What was so magical, Sue Ann.
Albert, I think Albert was adding one little thing there. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Albert.
Oh, it's fine. Quick thing. One of the first things that Jason said to me was, so how did you find out about this?
Right.
And then he trusted me enough to cast me in this. It was
I need to tell my Albert anecdote, but
he was brilliant in casting you, Albert. Absolutely. You nailed everything. There was, and please hit the Q&A button, pull in the questions for me, because I'd love to ask them. Sue Ann, in your wanting to be normal and date, because everybody kept trying to push you towards somebody who was autistic, you didn't want it. You didn't feel a tingle. I swear I fell out. You didn't tingle from somebody in that group. And you got your first kiss. Which is, wow, we think, what is our child going to get a kiss? Are they going to go through the romance and you got to live that for a moment. What was that like for you in that scene?
Oh, in the scene? I mean,
in your mind, you just talked to me about it, girl.
Yeah, I mean, oh my God, did you see Casey, the boy who played?
I did.
He was so like hot. The talk of the town. Like everyone's like, "Do you know who you're kissing today? Do you know who you're kissing?" So it was like, it was just so there was like, it's so easy because he's so sexy. He comes and he just brings sexiness, and you're just like, "Oh, I don't gotta do nothing. This is gonna be fun." It was, it was so amazing because that was such a win for Violet, right? That moment was like a crossover, like every little step that Violet could take towards normalcy, right? Is like, I'm winning. I'm going to break out of this stupid mold that everybody wants to stick me in, like Douglas, don't you dare set me up with that. Even though it's so ironic because Douglas and Violet are two peas in a pod. It's so easy,
Yes.
it's so easy between them. But so that even like, so that's we're talking about, like, the show has very universal themes, right? Like I'm sure everybody who's dated, whether you're autistic or not autistic, you're going for the bad boy. You're going for the person who is unavailable, doesn't want you, treat you like butt juice, whatever. And so yeah, and that was just Violet's version of that, with the misunderstandings of like, what do you mean it's a hookup, right? Like everybody goes through that, right? Because they don't know if it's a hookup. It's not but for someone who's autistic, definitely, because it's like, it's a forever thing. It's an obsessive thing. It's a, people can be special interest, right? And so you everything is just exponentially heightened and more intense when you're autistic, especially love.
Ooh.
That was, yeah, it's cool
Good.
to explore that.
That's why they call her the Michael B. Jordan of As We See It. Exactly. And shout out to Michael B. Jordan, by the way. We'll put his Instagram handle up here.
You guys,
You're the best.
we have so many questions, and I want to honor everyone who's watching you with bated breath and give a few questions. Corey Singer, thank you, says, "Hi, I'm autistic, and I want to thank you for making a show that I can actually relate to. My question is for Rick, Sue, and Albert. Did you guys get any say in how your characters were written, or was the writing believable enough for you to have total trust in the writers?"
Jason, let me
So I
improvise
can
every
answer that.
line.
Actually, they had absolutely no say. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Be careful, guys.
I don't know how Zoom works. If they heard my joke.
Should I leave the room before you answer?
Yeah.
A lot of the stuff was just like written for us. As I was reading through all the scripts, I was like, there is definitely someone autistic who helped write this. There's some nuance. This is good. Though we did have like some say over how we broke some scenes with directors, and we also did some ad libs. I'm not sure how much of them made it into the show, but I'm sure some of them definitely did. So there was some say for us.
All
Yeah,
right.
I mean, we were given a script that works. It works very, very well. And when speaking for myself, at least, when you're in a position like this where you're doing a show with somebody who has has already done this before, and I've watched it and I loved it. You don't want to change stuff, but then there's some things where you just feel like I could tap into it a little bit better if you change a little this. And I still don't quite understand the politics and how to best navigate this stuff. But at the times that I did ask Jason, like I kind of said before, anything you want to try, he lets you try. But I'm pretty confident, and I've watched it all and loved it. Pretty much everything in there he kind of had an idea that's what it was going to be.
Yeah, when I read like the script of like Violet, it was so easy to really. There were so many parallels in my own life as a female on the spectrum, and also I come from the old school thinking that like let the masters do their jobs. Like I love the structure of a set, right? I know what my job is when I'm the actor on set. I don't even think about lines. It's scripted. And as an autistic person, the safest place for me to be is on set. Like there's a writer, there's the showrunner, there's the boss. Like what everyone's role is. It's like I wish real life was like that, because that would be perfect.
Me too.
So yeah.
So you're not a Bergerac.
But that's all that said, there was a lot of, we really wanted the show to feel real, and for a lot of these scenes to feel conversational. And, we shoot in such a way that we have 3 cameras, and we do that for a reason, which is we're getting all sides of the conversation at once. So there are a lot of scenes where there are some scenes that are very much like exactly, scripted. But then there are scenes like, for example, when I think of like the morning meeting scenes, the scene when you're in the apartment, you're on the couch, and it's like there is there, you want to get that feeling that this is all happening at once, and Mandy's trying to juggle, all these needs and all these people. And so there is, that's a time when it feels really good to have people, sort of improv and chime in and kind of like, add, and there are some great sort of jewels that come out of that.
Yeah, I know this question wasn't for me, but there was like for a lot of those, I'm sorry, but for a lot of those morning meetings, we would do it as scripted, maybe once or twice. And then I think it was Jesse at first would say like, okay, now everybody just try to stress out Sosie and ask her 1,000 questions. And there's this, and there's one, I think it's at the beginning of the second episode, and Sue-Ann, you were just saying the funniest things. And Mandy's trying to be like, okay, but not Tinder. And it's just, I loved it because everybody went for it like full on. And I was like, ah. So those were fun. Improvising.
The improv was so fun. That was so cool.
I just saw he wrote, the question was for Sue-Ann, Albert, and Rick.
I know.
Leave it to Sosie.
No, but I said that before because I knew you were going to say that.
I do have a question and thank you so much, guys, for sending us your questions. Cat Moon, this is for just for Jason from Cat Moon. How did having a son on the spectrum contribute to shaping your vision for both the story and your vision for the filming environment on the set?
Well, I think that, because I'm a dad with a son on the spectrum, and I feel very personally connected to the material. I feel like I, kind of understand it a lot. And I also understand what I don't understand. And that's one of the reasons why I really wanted to cast it authentically. I wanted the voices of every, not only the leads, but every neurodiverse role. I wanted them to be played by neurodiverse actors, because I know that I don't know everything, even though I've been around it for a long time. And so, that was really important to me too. In terms of like the environment on the set, a lot of people have sort of asked, do you make special arrangements on the set, for it? And as Rick mentioned, we had Elaine Hall, who was amazing, who was our on-set advocate. We tried to keep the set, quiet between takes. We had a calm atmosphere. But the reality is, these guys came prepared. They were amazing. Everybody, all of our cast. And it was one of the most incredible sets that I've ever worked on because of them. And there really weren't, a lot of, I would say, special arrangements or anything that was that, sort of different. But there was just, as everybody was sort of talking about, there was this great feeling and trust on the set. There was an amazing, like we also did the show weirdly, like the pilot was done before the pandemic. And then we came back after the pandemic to shoot the series, and when we came back after the pandemic to shoot, it was, I didn't even know, are we going to be able to do this safely? I mean, I was nervous about it going into it, but there was such an incredible feeling of, like how important it was to people, because not only were they getting to work again and getting to do what we love to do, but they felt like they were doing it on a show that meant something. You know what I mean? And I'm not just talking about the cast, I'm talking about the whole crew. I'm talking about beyond the crew. Like I would constantly hear stories about the support that this show had in the community. Like the locations manager came up to me and said, like there are locations that people would never want anybody to shoot in. And they were like, but because of the subject matter, because they felt like the show was an important show to do, they changed it. And there were so many stories like that. And so
We got to film the finale in the Vatican.
I didn't want to, now giving the spoiler alert.
I'm sorry. Edit that out. Edit that out.
You can cut that out.
Cut that out.
Oh my gosh. This is a question from Evelyn Elson. And Evelyn says, "Hi, I'm autistic, and I'm absolutely delighted to see this kind of representation that is so involved in our community. I love this show so much, and it gives me so much hope." Now, her question is for the characters, what was it like for you to play characters who are autistic like you? And okay, I'll start with you, Rick.
I would like to defer that question. I'll answer it, but for someone who isn't here, and I hate that I don't remember his name. He's my boss. He plays my boss,
Robbie.
and
Robbie.
I know 9 names, and his isn't one of them. Robbie, yes. And we tested together. And he came back and he played. Jason cast him or whomever, everybody that was in part of casting, to play my boss, who is a neurotypical character. And I'm not answering your question literally. I'm sure Sue Ann and Albert will, but I just love that. I do think it's important for representation for everybody, not just autistic, but any other community that needs that representation, not just for equality, but for the reality of telling the best story. Like Jason said, it's just the most authentic. But I also love getting that foot in the door for anybody. Like Albert, it's his first job now, other than he's a master on the theater stage. But now Robbie, who I'm sure has been doing other stuff, but he's not just playing an autistic character. And I also think it's really important, that other side of it, for people who, there's so many characters on this show that played by neurodiverse people and neurodiverse characters, but to be able to do that thing. And I love that our show was able to do that as well.
I could go next. I've wanted to act since I was like 10, but I didn't even like consider the possibility of playing an autistic character until the tail end of college, when I was given it as an assignment. And a scene from a play, the name of it escapes me.
Robbie.
And it's just it was an interesting experience to get in the headspace of this character, because there were definitely some things that I relate to, or that I know I could approach, which in the way that a neurotypical actor probably wouldn't. And so it was an interesting experience. That's the most eloquent I could put it. And I'm proud of my work. I hope people enjoy it. That I did a good job.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
Epic job.
Albert. What about you, Sue Ann?
Oh my gosh. So, I mean, that question's really amazing, because for me, acting is basically hiding everything autistic about myself that I've been doing since I was like yay high, right? Since I was like 5 years old, I got like groomed, by my mom to do this Winnie the Pooh monologue, and I win it. So everything in my life was a performance. I had to go places, perform, and not stick out. And so it's like the journey of like how the show is. I mean, everything that I hid, that I was scared of, show into the world, like everything, I got to reveal that vulnerably. And so, like as an actor, it was so freeing. There was places and spaces for me to emotionally be so authentic and vulnerable and revealed, because I didn't have to sit there and be in like survival mode. Like, am I doing this right? Am I saying this right? Did I just look at somebody weird? Because I'm constantly like metering that as a person on the spectrum. So, thank God I got to like set it. And it's funny because, I like when I used to audition, like I'm sure casting directors saw it and they just didn't know, like, what's wrong? Like if I went out for this like role and the casting director, she knows it was a Carmen Q, but she was like, well, how about you want to play this role where you're like a mentally ill person, like singing in jail? And I was like, that actually sounds like that might be up my alley and I'd be able to nail that, what's the role I went out for, but why not, So I guess I'm not hiding it that well. And maybe I don't need to. Whatever. Whatever.
I'm not going to add anything more because we have to wrap it up. It's been so just delightful and so eye-opening. But as we wrap it up, I want to ask the cast, what do you want people to take away from your show? What do you want autistic people, this is one of the questions we got, to take away from your show? So I'll open it up to you, Jason.
Oh, well, I think, oh man, I think what I want people to take away from the show is, well, first of all, what I hope they take away from it is that the show is sort of delightful, that it is funny, that it's moving, that it will make you feel. And to me, that is at it right now, when I'm looking for shows, when the world is going through like everything that we're going through right now, that's what I look for in a show. And I think the show does that. And so I hope that people take that away. And I also think that there's also my hope is that, we can kind of contribute to, breaking down some myths about what it means to be autism and what it means to be autistic and in particular being an adult on the spectrum. There's this really horrible autistic that statistic that I learned. Excuse me. Statistic that I learned, which is that 80% of people with autism who are college graduates are unemployed. So 80% employment, and that's just wrong. And it shows that there's a disconnect between how the world is understanding people with autism and what it is and what it really is. So, my hope is that we start to sort of, just sort of change the narrative about how people see, people with autism.
We're running out of time, so I'm going to ask Rick,
Yep.
What would you have autistic people take from the show?
We talked about it earlier, Sherri. I feel like you could connect to this strongly, that when we laugh at something, when we laugh with something or at something, in my experience, it invites you into it. It feels good. And when you get to, instead of be turned off by something that you don't understand, forget even being willing to understand it. You just don't, and you shut it away. But to be able to come in and laugh at something, it kind of binds you to it. And it allows you to ask questions. Something that has always been an obstacle for me in my life was I didn't realize people were receiving me differently than I anticipated, and they would never ask me because it's uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable to ask me, to tell me not to do something or what it is. And this shows when you laugh at something, maybe I feel comfortable saying, what does that smell? And what autistic people could get out of this, I mean, it's leading, I don't know if I'm answering that exactly right, but just know that it's okay for people to laugh at the weird things about you, even if it's at you at first, because the only difference between laughing with somebody and at somebody is the awareness of the person being laughed at. And if they see what's funny too, it's just another language. And autism, we speak different languages sometimes, but funny is funny. And if you could get somebody to laugh, or if somebody does laugh, to kind of just at least clock that, and what can we connect on? What's funny here? And because this show allows us to laugh with, at, whatever something, I hope that gives the confidence to people to either ask weird people what's going on, or for the people that are being laughed at and maybe feeling a little insecure, to recognize there's a perspective I'm missing and ask that question.
I want to say we have to wrap it up. For me and my son, Jeffrey, thank you so much, Jason. Thank you, everybody, for what you have done and what you have showed. That is all the time we have. We want to thank our panelists.